This video is going to talk about comparing decimal fractions and decimals. So they want us to write point A as a decimal and a fraction. I can see that we start at 0 and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lines in there. So we have 10 sections. So this would be half right at this line. And what that means is that A, if this is broken into tenths, 0 is 0 tenths. 1 tenth, 2 tenths, that would be 3 tenths, or 0.3. Point C, if we look at that, is 6 tenths more than 1, which means we made it 1 whole and 6 tenths, which would be 1 and 6 tenths, or 1.6. They want us to write a decimal and a fraction for B, D, and E. Well, if these are all tenths, B, if this 1 is 10 over 10, 9 over 10, B is 8 over 10, or 8 tenths. Point C, we already talked about, that's 1 and. Point D, I see if this is 0 tenths, 1 tenth, 2 tenths, 3 tenths, point D is at 4 tenths, but it's not just 4 tenths. It is 1 whole, 2 wholes, and 4 tenths, or 2.4. Point E is 1 tenth past 3, which means 3 wholes and another tenth. 3 and 1 tenth. So we have positive tenths here. This is 1 tenth, 2 tenths, 3 tenths, and we could keep going. Going the other way, it's the same thing, just backwards. Negative 1 tenth, negative 2 tenths, negative 3 tenths, and so on and so forth. It's doing the same thing, 1 tenth, negative a tenth, 3 tenths, negative 3 tenths. It's the same distance, just different directions. So if we're looking to figure out where these are marked, remembering that this is 0 tenths, this is 1 or 10 tenths, this is negative 1 or negative 10 tenths. That means that this dot here is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 tenths away from 0. 5, 6, 7, 8, that makes this 9 tenths away from 0. If this is 0 tenths, going backwards 2 would be backwards 1, backwards 2, that'd be backwards 2 tenths, or negative 2 tenths. 3, 4, 5, 6, negative, whoops, well, not 3, negative 7 tenths for the other one. So now we want to know how far from 0 is point A. Well, if we look at point A and we look at where 0 is, it's 1, 2, 3 tenths away in a negative direction. So we call that negative 3 tenths. The point for B, after the 3, we have 2 more, so that's negative 5 tenths. Letter C, we have a whole full jump, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. So that would be negative 1 and 4 tenths. I don't know why that negative sign is so low, but that's fine. Letter D, same thing. 1 whole jump, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Negative 1 and 8 tenths. Same thing here, writing the decimal or fraction or mixed number. So let's go ahead. I'd like you to try this out first. Know that this is separated into tenths, and then we'll talk about it. Welcome back. So if we are at 0 is here, let's go ahead and find where letter A is. For letter A, that's going to be 1 full jump and 9 tenths of another jump. So that's negative 1 and 9/10 away from 0. Or negative 1.9. Letter B is 1 whole jump in the negative direction plus 3 more tenths. So negative 1 and 3/10, or negative 1.3. Letter C, 1, 2, 3, 4, negative 5/10, or just negative 5/10 as a decimal. Letter D, we're getting into the positives now, is 3/10 away from 0 in the positive direction. So that's 3/10 or 0.3. Letter E is 1 full jump and another tenth. 1 and 1/10, this is going in a positive direction, or 1.1. Now what they want us to do is they want us to compare these fractions. So if I have, remember that this over here is the biggest and over here is the smallest. So if I have negative 1 and 6/10, or negative 0.2, negative 1 and 6/10, so this is negative 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so I'm going to be looking here. Negative 0.2, negative 2/10 is 1, 2 jumps away. Which one's closer to the bigger side? That would be negative 0.2. For letter B, we have negative 1.4. So we're going to start at 0 again. Negative 1, 1, 2, 3, negative 1.4. We also have negative 1 and 6/10. So I'm going to start at 0 again, go back negative 1 and 6/10, which is going to lead me to the same place that we were before. Which one's bigger? Negative 1.4, or negative 1 and 4/10. It's closer to the bigger side of the fraction bar. Now, which one's bigger here? The negative, which is somewhere on this side, or the positive, which is somewhere on this side? You don't even have to look at it, at the number. You just have to see that there's two different signs. Positive is always bigger. Done. Now, let's say that we have this big number line here, and this is 0, and this is 1, just in case you can't see the really tiny numbers. This is 0.10. This is 0.20, 0.30, 0.40. If we want to enlarge this section and make it bigger, that means that we're going to take what's circled and we're going to see it here. You can see the jump. Wow! So to label what's inside here, we're not going to do a decimal and a fraction. Like you don't do negative 0.2 and 1/10. That doesn't make sense. But what they do is we're going to add a 0 to the end of the numbers, because from 0.2 to 0.3, it doesn't look like there's very much. But 0.20, that would mean 0.21, 0.22, 0.23, 0.24. This right here would be 0.25, and we'd continue going. So they want to know what numbers are marked here. So what would this be, and what would this be? The first line would be 0.21, or 21/100ths. The middle line would be 0.25, or 25/100ths. They want to point to which side of the number line 0 will be. So where is 0 when we have these negative numbers? Well, if I want to get to 0, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, that's not going to get me to 0. I want to keep going this way. 0 is going to be somewhere over here. They also have some points here that we can identify. Negative 0.40, negative 0.41, negative 0.42, negative 0.43, negative 0.44, negative 0.45, negative 0.46, negative 0.47. negative 0.48, negative 0.49. So again, they want to use a decimal and a fraction for the marked points. I'm going to give you a minute to think about that on your own. Go ahead and pause. Come back when you're ready. Welcome back. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at each of these. The decimal and the fraction. So I am going to go out of order here because I can. I'm going to start at this 0, which is always my midpoint, and I'm going to go in the positive direction first. So, oh, look, I see point C, and that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/10 away. So C is 5/10, or 0.5. Let's go ahead. Oh, but wait a minute. That's actually not. What is the problem with what I just did? Wow. Let's take a look. So this is not 0.5 because this is 0.1. Would it make sense to have 0.5 and then 0.1? No, it would not. So what's going to happen here, there it is that this is going to be 0.05. C is 0.05. Or, as we know, hot summer day, decimal drips down. That becomes 5/100, because we don't need that anymore. So 5/100, or 0.05. That's what will get us all the way to over here. Let's take a look at letter D. 0.01, 0.011, 0.012, 0.013. I'm sorry, 0. Yep. So that would actually, it's a good day, kids. What this actually would be is this would be 0.1, 0.11, 0.12, 0.13. That might have been what I already said. Or 13/100 when we use hot summer day. So that, ooh, that's fantastic. That would be what this one turns out to be. Letter E would be 0.21. Or when we use hot summer day, 21/100. B and A are going to be the same thing. They're just going to be negatives. So when I go to B, I start at 0, going to 0.1, which means everything's going to be 0.0 something. 0.01, 0.02, that's going to be negative 0.03, or negative 3/100ths when I use my hot summer day, which I'm running out of room to show. Letter A is going to be 0.09 because it's almost a 0.1 but not quite. But it's not 0.09, it's negative. We could also say negative 9/100ths, which would be the fraction way of showing this. Now what they want us to do is they want us to extend this out. So negative 0.13 or negative 0.02. In my opinion, I'd probably convert things to decimals or to fractions with common denominators. But we also have a number line here, so let's take a look at that. Negative 13/100ths, negative 0.13. Well, this is whole numbers, so it's going to be hard to fit things here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change negative 13/100ths to negative 13/100ths. What's bigger here, 13/100ths or 2/100ths? If it was positive, 13 would be bigger than 2, but we're in the negative. So this time, negative 2/100ths is bigger. Which is bigger, a negative something or nothing? Nothing is better than losing something. What about letter C? Negative 0.13, negative 0.2. We don't know what's here, so there's nothing here, so we're gonna put a 0. Now that we have that, let's compare. Which number's bigger here? The 2 is bigger, and because they're both negative, that means 0.13 is moving less in this direction. So negative 0.13 is correct. For the last one, we have 0.07, 0.11. We're done with this. This is over. Comparing these, 1 is bigger than 0, and they're both positive. So we would go with 11 hundredths instead of 7 hundredths. So they want to know which temperature is warmer, negative 3.6 or negative 2.58 degrees Celsius. Well, negative 2.58 is closer to 0. So that's going to be what I go with to be just a little bit warmer in that very, very, very cold situation. Which elevation is higher up? Negative. So in the negatives with elevation is typically like how tall is the mountain? But this time the elevation goes into the negatives. So that's going to go below sea level. And you can see the sea. So negative 14.2 goes down a certain amount. 14.2 meters exactly. Negative 14.7 goes just a little bit deeper. So we want the more shallow one so that we can be higher up and closer to the water, because breathing, I've heard, is important. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you have an absolutely fantastic rest of the day.